17 weeks and 256 bets down, 1 week and 16 bets to go. We are entering the final week of the road to 272 bets. Welcome to the NFL Week 18 episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. And yes, we are finally, after a long season here at the final week, it has been a grind. We are sitting at 134, 119, and 3 for plus 8.35 units heading into the final week after a small step back last week, 7-9, minus 2.59 units last week. But hopefully up almost 8.5 units. We are going to finish the season in the green with a profit, barring an absolute all-time collapse and implosion in the final week. We're in a pretty good spot here, but I'm going to make it my goal here in the final week to win back what we lost last week, get back to a double-digit unit profit for the 2023 edition of the road to 272 bets. I will say this is week 18. Week 18 is, in my opinion, the hardest week of the NFL season to handicap because we do not know, especially when I place these bets on Monday, what teams are going to rest their starters, what teams are going to start their starters, how motivated teams like the Ravens and 49ers will be, given they've already locked up the number one seed in their respective conferences. So it is a little bit of a tough week to handicap, but we're going to prevail. We don't need a huge, massive week. Let's get back a couple units. Let's finish, 9-7, 10-6, and finish the 2023 season on a good note. I am recording this a day late. I had a hectic holidays between Christmas, my birthday, New Year's, family and friends visiting. So I took Tuesday off, or I should say Monday off. I did place my bets. I did write my notes. I did publish the written version of the road to 272 bets. I didn't record, though. I just didn't quite have the energy to do it last night. So I apologize for that. I'm recording it Tuesday night here. But I do need to say some of the lines have already moved from where I locked them in yesterday. Some have moved against me. Some have moved in my favor. So when I get to the games where the lines have moved, I will obviously address that and give my take on the new line as well. To do my best to make up for the fact that I did not record last night. Best bets this week, just to kind of finish off my recap, 2 and 3, so not a great week for best bets either. 49ers and Patriots, lost Dolphins, Panthers, and Vikings. Teaser of the week did win, though. We teased the Rams down to a minus 0.5. That barely came through for us. And then we got the Chiefs at minus 1.5 against the Bengals. So teaser of the week did win last week. And the final note I will say, if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you aren't, I always got to tell you, head over to the YouTube channel, Bacon Bets Podcast, subscribe to the channel. That helps us out quite a bit. But if you are watching this on YouTube, you'll see I'm wearing my Falcons jersey. I have decided, I said it a few weeks ago actually, that I'm going to go down with a ship, and I'm doing it in a big way this week. I already have a 5-unit bet on them to make the playoffs that I placed before the season started. I placed another small bet on them to win the NFC South this weekend. Because if you don't know, the Falcons, after all this season, the roller coaster of a season the Falcons have been on, they do still have a shot to win the NFC South. Now, it's not crazy. We don't need a ton of different results. We only need 2 different results. Now, those 2 results might be a little bit tough to happen. We need the Falcons to beat the Saints. They're 3-point underdogs. And we need, this is the tougher one, the Panthers to beat the Buccaneers. Panthers, obviously the worst team in the NFL. Panthers at home. 5-point underdogs, I think they are, at home to the Buccaneers. But that's all we need. If the Falcons beat the Saints, the Panthers beat the Buccaneers, at 8-9, the 2023 champions of the NFC South is my Atlanta Falcons. So I'm all in on it. I have prepared them for them to win. I will go down with a ship. I see Falcons fans all over the place hoping we lose so we get a better draft pick. That's stupid in my opinion. I will be going down with my ship as it sinks because there's almost no way this is going to go well. I'm just setting myself up for heartbreak, but it is what it is. I love my team. They are my team. I've chosen this life. I will go down with a ship in what I'm sure is going to be an ugly fashion on Sunday. So because of that, I am wearing my AJ Terrell Atlanta Falcons jersey. All we can do is hope for the best. Nobody's really talking about it as a possibility. I know this is crazy. I know my Falcons bias is coming through. I know I'm an idiot. I know I'm a moron. I know I'm setting myself up for failure, but I actually think the Falcons are going to win the NFC South. Weird things happen. Just actually 2 years ago, it was the Colts, and it wasn't for the division, but it was for a wild card spot. The Colts either had to beat the Jaguars, or they needed the Steelers to lose in the final week of the season. And the Jaguars at the time, I think, only had one win. They were the worst team in the NFL. What happened? The Steelers won, and the Colts lost to the worst team in the NFL. Remember, that was the Carson Wentz year in Indianapolis. And the Steelers ended up making the playoffs. It can happen. It's happened before. Don't sleep on the Panthers. Even last time the Buccaneers played the Panthers and the Buccaneers are at home, barely escaped with the win there. It can happen. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's giving the Falcons a chance. I legitimately think it's going to happen. I'm not just saying this. I don't call it a gut feeling. It's more just likely that I'm crazy and this is like Stockholm Syndrome. I think the Falcons are going to win the NFC South this weekend. I can't wait. Can't wait. But with that being said, of course, 18 games, 18 picks. Let's get through it. I'll break them all down here throughout the show, then recap them at the end. I'll then give you my 5 best bets and my teaser of the week. And that will put a little bow on the road to 272 bets. I will be back for the playoffs, and in the playoffs, I will be placing a bet on every game, side, or total. I also do a player prop for every game as well. So those might be recorded a little bit later in the week. They might be a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning thing throughout the playoffs, so I can get player props out as well. But that is the plan for the playoffs. I did it last year as well. So stick around for that. But let's dive into it. It is the final week. We're here at the end. It is the final week of the road to 272 bets. Let's go.
I'm not a state. I'm a monster.
No, Lisa. The only monster here is the gambling monster that has enslaved your mother. I call him Gamblor, and it's time to snatch your mother from his neon claws.
All right, let's dive into it. We do have 2 Saturday games to watch and bet on for Week 18, starting with the Steelers and the Ravens. And this is a perfect place to start because this is going to be a good example of how I handle betting on Week 18 of the season. My number one piece of advice to anyone who is betting on the NFL this week is to not just blindly bet on the teams who have something to play for while betting against the teams who have nothing to play for. That is not a winning strategy. That has not worked in the past. Sure, it works some games. It certainly doesn't work in all games. And don't forget, all this stuff is baked into the lines. It's not like you're pulling a fast one on sports books by betting on teams who need to win the game and betting against teams where the game is meaningless. These are still NFL players, even if it is a few backups playing. They're still NFL players. I mean, you could even make the argument maybe they're playing more freely because they have nothing to win, but they also have nothing to lose as well. So just don't fall into that trap. We see it all the time. We also see the new thing the past couple of years. We've seen it kind of explode this year. Is betting on the overs for players who have contract incentives to get a certain amount of stats. Once again, sports books are aware of all these things. They've already been baked into the lines, and if they weren't baked into the lines when they are first released, I guarantee you people who are professional bettors who do this for a living pounded those props within 10 minutes of them being released, and now they are properly adjusted to where they are. So you can use this reasoning in some certain areas and key situations that I'm going to kind of talk about in the games today, but it is not you're not pulling a fast one. You're not a sharp bettor if you're just going to take the over and player props for players who have contract incentives and betting on teams who have something to gain by winning these games. One of my least favorite tropes of sports bettors when they place bets is, it's a must-win game, and therefore, they're going to be motivated. You better bet on them. That's sports betting is not that easy. If it was, we would all be rich. So with that all being said, I'm going to take the Ravens with the points on Saturday, late afternoon game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you don't already know, this game means nothing for the Ravens. They've already locked up the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Steelers don't necessarily need to win, but winning this game is going to improve their chances quite a bit of making the playoffs. If they don't win, they do kind of have a chance, but it's basically like they need everyone else in the AFC in the playoff picture to also lose. So Ravens or Steelers, let's say it's basically a must-win game for them. Ravens, it is a meaningless game. Now, this is one of the games where the line has moved on me already. I bet it on Monday at plus 4.5. It is down to plus 3.5, at least at the book that I bet it at, which I bet it at PointsBet. I think, at least this afternoon, there were still some plus 4s out there. Let me see here. No, plus 3.5 at DraftKings as well. I'll just check all the books at once. No, it doesn't look like there's any plus 4s out there. So it's plus 3.5 across the board. I still like it at 3.5. I would still, if you want to tail this bet, I would do it at 3.5. If it dips to 3 or lower, then what I would do is probably bet the under. The unders right now is sitting between 36.5 and 38, depending on where you're looking at. I like the Ravens getting more than a field goal. If they're only getting a field goal or less than a field goal, bet on the total instead, and I'd probably lean a little bit more towards the under. So that's how I feel about the current line movement based on this. As of recording this, it has not been announced if Lamar Jackson's going to play. That's obviously going to be the big difference maker if he plays or if he doesn't. Based on the line movement, you might think the Ravens might actually play the starters. That's another thing that might happen in Week 18. You might see the starters play a half or a quarter. It's very, very hard to tell, especially this early in the week. But still, we have a very good Ravens team who have basically established themselves as the best team in the NFL at home, getting more than a field goal against, let's call it for what it is, a bad Steelers team. There are some websites out there that measure a luck factor based on a couple of other combined stats. And all of the different websites that do a luck factor, it is the Steelers at the top by a wide margin. Now, Mason Rudolph has looked good in the games that he's played in. He is going to be getting the start over a healthy Kenny Pickett this week. Bit of a wild move, but I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If he's going to lead you to a couple key wins, you just kind of have to stay with a hot hand. He has completed in his game so far this season 68.5% of passes, 567 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the key aspect, no interceptions. Now, what you got to know though is, he threw 3 passes against the Colts at the end of the game. That doesn't really matter, but the last 2 games, and I bet the over in both of them. He was taking on the Seahawks and the Bengals, 2 teams with, I would say, 2 of the 3 worst secondaries in the NFL, probably at least 2 of the worst 5 secondaries in the NFL. So don't expect Mason Rudolph to all of a sudden have another good game. This is by far, not even close, by far a much, much, much better secondary. Many would say the best secondary in the NFL. It's between them and the Browns. So he's going from 2 games against two bottom 5 secondaries, now going up against a top 3 secondary. Even if the Ravens rest some starters, it's not like they're going to rest all 11 guys on defense. Ravens defense, I think, is still going to cause Mason Rudolph a lot of issues, especially with this being a road game for the Steelers. Do they squeak out a win? Sure. I'm not laying 3.5 points on them, though, or in the case when I bet on Monday, 4.5 points. Let's remember the Steelers ranked as 24th in the NFL in net yards per play, minus 0.4. And even though they did beat the Ravens, and this was all the way back in Week 5 before the Ravens really got rolling, the Ravens did outgain them in that game 5 yards per play to 4.4 yards per play. So I do not like the Steelers in this game, despite it being a quote-unquote must-win game for them. I will take the points with the Ravens. I recommend you doing the same as long as you can get it above a field goal. And right now, it is 3.5s across the board. So I imagine if you're going to listen to this when I release this Wednesday morning, 3.5s will likely still be available. I'm recording this 9:30 p.m. Eastern right now. The other side of the game. Saturday night game, one of the most intriguing games of the weekend. I'm glad they made this Saturday night game because it's quite simply, win you're in, lose you're out. It doesn't get much easier than this. It is the Houston Texans against the Indianapolis Colts. The winner will make the playoffs. The loser will be sent home. If it is a tie, the slight advantage does go to the Colts, as I understand it. But not only does the winner clinch a playoff spot, they also might win the division. If the Jaguars lose to the Titans on Sunday, the winner of this Saturday night game will not only have a wild card spot, or actually beyond a wild card spot, they will win the AFC South. So a lot on the line in this game, and it is near a coin flip. I got the Texans at minus 102 when they're a very, very, very slight underdog. Throughout the day, once again, I placed these bets on Monday. Throughout the day, today on Tuesday, it has flipped. Now the Texans are a slight favorite. I still like the Texans. Minus 1s are available across the board. Just looking at it now, a couple places have moved to minus 1.5. FanDuel has it minus 1.5. But you can still get minus 1s. BetMGM minus 1. DraftKings minus 1.5. PointsBet minus 1. I still like the Texans, probably anything below a field goal, to be completely honest. I really like the Texans in this game. I think these two teams, especially defensively, have been trending in opposite directions. Since Week 10, the Texans' defense is 12th in opponent EPA per play, 9th in opponent success rate. And over that same time frame, the Colts are 19th and 21st in those two categories. So the Texans also do a great job of running the ball, stopping the run. They are right now right up there with the Falcons and the Patriots as a top 3 run defense. And the Colts like to really establish the run and get the ball moving on the ground as well. So I think if the Texans stop the Colts' run game, I think they can do enough offensively here, especially against this Colts defense, to get the job done. So I like the Texans. Obviously, as good of a number as you can get on them, the better. I like if the line was 2.5, I would probably still take the Texans. It won't go higher than that. I bet you it's probably going to rest at around 1.5, 2. If it gets all the way up to 3, then the value kind of flips, and then I would just take whatever team's getting a field goal worth of points. But on the current line, I got it at -102 on the current line. I like the Texans still in this one. So that's it for the 2 Saturday games. Moving on to Sunday's games. This line has moved quite a bit, and I probably should have done some research as to why it moved. I'm guessing it is the Lions, the Colts I'm talking about. I'm guessing the Lions, I haven't seen it though. Are the Lions resting some players? At least the line move gave that hint, because I got the Vikings against the Lions at +6 on Monday night. This line has moved all the way down to +3. So this is actually going to be a rare case where the line has moved enough. I actually think the value has flipped to the opposite side. I actually kind of like the Vikings now. So what I have bet on is now different from what I'm recommending you bet on. I'm guessing some Lions players are sitting based on this. I think the only thing the Lions can do, they're in the 3 spot right now. They're not going to drop to the 4 spot. They could improve to the 2 spot, but I think they would need both the Cowboys and the Eagles to both lose, I think. So they're, for all intents and purposes, they're probably locked into the 3 spot. They're probably going to rest a couple of guys. I like the Vikings at +6. Current line -3. Even if they rest a couple of guys, I like the Lions. Nick Mullins is probably going to start at quarterback for the Vikings. I mean, it's kind of weird now because I'm going to make my argument for the Vikings, but I'm making them a +6. This is why I should not be recording the day after I actually make my picks. I think 6 is too many points because just a couple weeks ago when the Vikings were at home, they lost to the Lions, but they outgained them 7.6 yards per play to 5.1 yards per play. Now, the reason why they both outgained them by that many, but also lost the game is Nick Mullins. Because Nick Mullins is a gunslinger. He will throw the ball. He will throw for a ton of yards, but he's also going to throw some picks. So that is why I think 6 is too many points to give the Vikings. They're going to fight this Lions team down to the wire based on just Nick Mullins slinging it all over the place. But they will probably ultimately lose because of a couple of key turnovers. So with it now being at the magic number of 3, I would recommend taking the Lions. Depending on when you're listening to this, check the line. I set this line at probably Vikings +5, Vikings maybe 4.5. Anything below that, I would probably take the Lions, especially at the current line of -3. So take that for what it's worth. If it's -3 right now, take the Lions. If it's moved back up to the -6 area, then I like the Vikings. So that's where I'm looking at for that one. Browns Bengals. Now I'm not getting CLV on all these different bets. There are some that have moved against me. I got the Browns at +5. It is now +6. So this is going to be one of the rare ones where you will actually get a better line than me. So yes, of course, if I like the Browns at +5, I also like them at +6. Browns have nothing to play for whatsoever. They are locked into the number 5 seed in the AFC. I believe that the Bengals are eliminated, right? Yeah, they are. So the Bengals also, in theory, have nothing to play for except for pride at this point. But a couple of reasons why I like the Browns getting these points. Yeah, the Bengals are officially out. The Browns have kind of been playing with backups all season, especially on the offensive end. So despite them even, are they going to sit Joe Flacco? Is Joe Flacco worth that much to them that they're going to sit him? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco plays. In terms of the other, especially because he hasn't played a full season, so probably the more reps he can get, the better. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Browns don't sit a ton of guys, especially offensively. And the Bengals defense is so bad that even if the Browns have some backups in offensively, I still think they can move the ball. And then on the flip side of it, We saw what Jake Browning does against good defenses like the Chiefs last week. I think he's going to struggle against this Browns defense. This Browns defense is a historically good defense. This is way too many points to lay in a team that I think is playing against this good of a defense, even if the Browns are on the road and playing with some backups. So this is another spot. I'm kind of going contrarian. I'm kind of going against the grain. I got Browns +5, -110. As of Tuesday night, it's at +6. That's an even better number, especially with 6 kind of being like a secondary key number. Moving on here. Let's see if this line has moved. It has slightly, but it doesn't. This is not really a notable one, especially because this is my money line upset of the week. I told you guys at the start of the show that I was going down with the ship. My final upset pick in week 18 of the road to 272 bets is my Atlanta Falcons. Going down with the ship with the Dirty Birds against the Saints. Obviously, the Falcons have to win this game to have any shot at winning the division. I might be a Falcons homer. I mean, you can take what I said, all the stuff I said at the start of the show, and just apply it here. I do think the Falcons are overall a better team. This is tough saying it after getting their asses kicked by the Bears. But they do outrank them in net yards per play this season, +0.2 compared to -0.1. They did beat them back in their Week 12 matchup, 24-15. Now, the Falcons are a very different team on the road than at home. That does kind of concern me. But I don't know. I'm letting some bias take over here. Not only do I need the Falcons to win for me to cash my futures on them, but I have no desire betting on the Aints, our biggest rival. So I'm sorry if there's one matchup that happens twice a year where I'm going to let my bias take over a little bit. It's when my Falcons play the Saints, especially with a playoff spot on the line. So I'll take my Falcons. I don't really have much more to say than that. +160 is the money line odds I got. The best odds you can get on the money line right now for the Falcons is... There's a +156 out there, so it's going to be a slightly not quite as good as what I got of that. Still, you're +150s, +140s. I like the Falcons. They're going to be... I just want to set myself up for as much pain as possible. So when they lose, which I'm sure they probably will, I will lose my Falcons playoff bet, my Falcons division bet, and my Falcons money line bet all in one foul swoop. Give me as much pain as possible. I'm a masochist. Falcons +160. Jets and Patriots. Let's see if the line has moved in this one. It has, at least at BetMGM, which is where I bet it. But in this one, I like the Patriots -2.5. This is one of my best bets of the week. It is a meaningless game. Neither team can gain anything. They're both long eliminated from the playoffs. But I've been betting on the Patriots the past couple of weeks, and it has worked. I bet on them to cover against the Bills last week. I bet on them as my money line upset the week before against the Broncos. And what was it? Is it 3 weeks in a row now I've bet on them successfully? Before that, they played the Chiefs, and I think they covered in that game too. But maybe they didn't. I don't remember the spread in that game, if I'm going to be completely honest. When you bet on 272 games, sometimes you forget which games you won on and which games you lost on. It's 27, or this was one of the pushes, I think. Closed at 10.5. I don't remember what I got of that. Maybe I did win. Regardless, I've bet on the Chiefs 3 weeks in a row at least. And it's because, the Patriots 3 weeks in a row. And it's because I think they are a lot better in the record. 4-12, that is their record, but they're 14th in the NFL in net yards per play at +0.1. That is the same mark in net yards per play as the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, obviously, every time I cite net yards per play, which is on almost every single pick, obviously there are other things factored into how good a team more than just net yards per play. But that does give you an overall view of how good a team is. If you look at the net yards per play rankings, they do pretty much line up with records for the most part. There are some outliers on both ends of the spectrum, but for the most part, good teams rank high in net yards per play. Bad teams rank low in net yards per play. And the Patriots, despite being 4-12, are 14th in the NFL in net yards per play. Their defense is elite, especially their ability to stop the run, which is going to be huge taking on the Jets, who the only thing they can do, or the only good player they have, is Breece Hall. I guess you can say Garrett Wilson is too, but that doesn't matter when you have, who's throwing them the ball now? Trevor Siemian? Yikes. The Patriots offense, not great, but slightly better than the Jets offense. So, yeah, I'll take Patriots -2.5 at home. I lost the LV. It's down to -2. So this is one of those ones you can actually get a better line than I can. Let's see generally what the consensus line is here for this one. -2 DraftKings. So it's -2.5. Some books, other books have -2. So grab that -2 if you can. That was not available when I bet it on Monday. Patriots. Might be my best bet of the week to be completely honest. Buccaneers, Panthers. You can guess which way I'm going with this. Now, I'm not going to be brave enough to take the Panthers to win outright, although that would be nice. You know what would actually really suck? Which is definitely possible. If the Buccaneers lose this game, but then the Falcons can't beat the Saints, and then we have to see the Saints in the playoffs. What a goddamn nightmare. I'd rather just the Bucs be in the playoffs, to be honest. What a nightmare that would be. Give me the Panthers, +6, -110 in this one. The line is now down to 5.5. So I got on the right side of the line a little bit here by about half a point. Still like the Panthers there. Like the Panthers are probably anything above 4.5. You guys know I'm not big believers in the Buccaneers. I think they're the most fraudulent team in the NFL. I think they're the worst team that's currently sitting in a playoff spot. They have a net yards per play of -0.2. They almost lost to the Panthers at home in Week 13. They only beat them 21-18. And the Panthers' defense much improved in the second half of the season, 14th in opponent success rate since Week 12. Bucs defense 22nd in opponent success rate over that same time frame. It's an ugly bet. The Panthers' offense might not score a point like they didn't last week, but I will take the 6 points, or on the current line, 5.5 with the Carolina Panthers. Jaguars, Texans. This is one where the line has moved against me, so I like it at where I got it, which was +4.5. I like it at the current line, which is +5.5. I'll take the Titans. Another one I'm going contrarian. Another one where I'm betting against the team that is in a must-win game. But I will take the Jacksonville Jaguars here, the Titans here in this spot. I've bet on them actually probably quite a bit the second half of the season, and it hasn't worked for me. I bet on them to win outright last week, and they got smoked by the Texans. But Jacksonville's bad. They are the Buccaneers of the AFC. They're barely clinging on to their AFC South title. They are at least analytically worse than the two teams that are battling against them. In this case, it's the Colts and the Texans. They're 20th in the NFL in net yards per play. And one of its biggest weaknesses is their red zone offense. They score only 51.02% of red zone trips. Score a touchdown, that is. And now they take on the best red zone defense in the NFL in the Titans. Jaguars also defense has been subpar in the second half of the season. 21st in opponent EPA per play, 23rd in opponent success rate since week 10. So with all of that being said, I will take the points of the Titans. I'm also just generally not a fan of the Jaguars. I don't really want to see them in the playoffs. I'd rather the winner of the Colts and the Texans win the division and the Jaguars get the boot. So I will take the Titans +4.5, -108. You're getting a better line now, +5.5. Take that instead if you want to. But yeah, I will back Tennessee with the points in that one. All right, we're halfway through the games. 8 games down, 8 to go. I'll take a quick break and I'll be back in just a moment. All right, let's get back into it. This one's a little bit of a tough one. Another one that we've seen some significant line movement in. It is the Chiefs and the Chargers. I got the Chargers at -1.5 here, -104. Throughout the day on Tuesday, the line moved in the Chargers' favor, and now we're sitting at the Chargers being 3-point favorites instead of 1.5. I would probably go the under now at the current line. I like the Chargers with it being at the key number of 3 now. I don't love them as much. I think the move might be to just take an under. So unfortunately, this is another one where the pick I'm giving you is going to be the pick going to be different from the pick I have. But they do kind of coincide. The reason why I would take the under now is the same reason why I like Chargers -1.5. And it is one of the reasons why a team that has nothing to play for in this situation I'm going to bet against, because I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but based on the post-game press conferences by the Chiefs, it kind of seems like Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play. And the Chiefs offense specifically, I'm trying to Google it to see if it's been confirmed since last time I looked for it. And when I Google Patrick Mahomes, all I get is Britney and Patrick Mahomes ringing the new year together. And then a couple more stories that somehow is related to Taylor Swift. Patrick Mahomes gets his photo with Taylor Swift and fans. Who cares? Yeah, I don't think it's been officially announced, but based on the post-game press conferences I listened to, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to play. And the Chiefs' offense, all they are is Patrick Mahomes. They don't have any other good enough players that's going to be able to do anything without Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. Maybe if they just decide to run the ball all game. I'm guessing Pacheco, especially with his kind of injury issues lately, I'm guessing he's probably going to rest. So you're going to run the ball all day with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and try to win a football game on the road in Los Angeles. I think that's going to be tough for them to do. They don't have any receivers that can take over. Travis Kelce, I mean, if anyone's going to rest on this offense, it's going to be Travis Kelce. He looks like an old man out there. So I don't like the Chiefs to win this game, maybe take them getting the 3 points, but it's also the reason why I'll take the under, because the Chiefs defense is good enough to slow down the Chargers offense as well. So it's why, even though I like the Chargers at -1.5, it's hard for me to bet on them to win by more than a field goal. I still don't want to take the Chiefs though. So I guess bet the under. This game all comes down to who the Chiefs are going to play. And if they don't play Patrick Mahomes, and my guess, my feel based on what I've read and listened to is that he's not going to play. So I will take the Chiefs or the Chargers -1.5 at -104. Actually, I think it's at -108 earlier. Based on the current odds on Tuesday, which is Chargers -3 and over under 36, I would take the under 36. If the current line balloons above the magic number of 3, I would then take the Chiefs with the points if they're getting more than a field goal, or if it shrinks back to less than 3, then I would take the Chargers. If it's at the exact number of 3, I think that is where the line should be set. I would then look to the total and I would bet the under 36. So that is how I would play Chargers and the Chiefs, and it all comes down to Patrick Mahomes not playing. This Chiefs team already is not the same Chiefs team as they were the past few years. I think if Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, we're really going to see just how good Patrick Mahomes is, because I think the Chiefs offense is going to look ugly without him. Seahawks Cardinals, I think this is my number one best bet of the week. It is a total bet. It is over 47.5 between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Obviously, the Seahawks need to win this game to have any chance of making the playoffs. Cardinals, this game is meaningless. But I bet on the over in both these teams' games last week. The Cardinals against the Eagles and the Seahawks against the Steelers. Both of them hit. And the big reason why is their defenses, specifically the Seahawks, has fallen off a cliff, and the Cardinals' defense just sucks, but we all know that. This might actually be a game between the two worst defenses in the NFL. Seahawks defense, not enough people are talking about how bad the Seahawks defense is. People are looking at Geno Smith, if he's the guy moving forward, it's looking to their offense. No, look no further than the Seahawks defense. That is the reason why they might miss the playoffs here. These two defenses rank 31st and 32nd in both opponent EPA and opponent success rate since week 10. So since week 10, if you put, any stock into EPA and success rate, this is the dead last and second last defenses in those two metrics since week 10. So terrible defenses. Both offenses rank inside the top 13 in both those stats since week 10. So we have two, top 13 offenses against arguably, at least some metrics would say, the worst defenses in the NFL since week 10. Give me plenty of points. I'll take the over 47.5 between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. I would say that's probably my best bet of the entire week. Eagles, Giants, I may regret this. I'm glad I didn't bet on the Eagles against the Cardinals last week and just took the over. But I'm going to be back on the Eagles train. I'm making the same bet on the Eagles that I made on them a couple of weeks ago. Actually, as of now, some 5s are available, so you can get a slightly better line as of now. But even though they didn't cover against the Giants a couple of weeks ago, I actually thought they deserved to. I thought they did outplay them. They outgained the Giants in that game, 6.3 yards per play to 4.9 yards per play. I think the Giants have got some luck recently. That 93-yard punt return against the Rams to almost win and at least cover the spread was insane. They had some luck against the Eagles in that game to cover in that game. I think the Giants have been the worst team in the NFL this season. Net yards per play would reflect that fact. They have a net yards per play of -1.3. So I'm going to bet against the Giants. And the Eagles, it's kind of flipped now because they were way overvalued like the first 13 weeks of the season. I was preaching from the mountaintops. They're fraudulent. Now they've looked even worse than I could have imagined. I actually think it has now kind of flipped. As ironic as it is for me to say, I actually now think the Eagles are a little bit undervalued. I actually think they are now The first 13 weeks, they were much worse than the results were showing. And now these past probably 2-3 weeks, I think they're much better than what the results have shown. Crazy that we can get that big of a flip from week in just a 17-week season or a 17-game season. But that's usually what happens, though, right? When a team is overperforming, or even, let me make the example of when you're placing bets. When you're on a hot streak, what usually follows up that hot streak is then an insane cold streak. Because when things regress to the mean, sometimes for things to regress to the mean, you need, just as significant of a result, but to the other direction. So this is kind of what we have seen from the Eagles. It's like they're playing blackjack, and they hit 10 blackjack hands in a row, and then the dealer got hot, and they lost, 5 of their next 6 hands. When really, where they should be is somewhere in the middle. They aren't as bad as they've looked the past couple of weeks. They aren't as good as they looked at the start of the season. I think they beat the Giants here. I think the Giants, like I said, are the worst team in the NFL. In my power rankings, I put Giants number 32. I'll take the Eagles minus 5.5 on the road in a game where if they want any chance of winning the NFC East, they have to win this game. This game goes on at the same time as the Cowboys game, so it's not like if the Cowboys game happened, in the early afternoon slot, it's not like the Cowboys win. Okay, now they know they have nothing to play for. When the ball kicks off for the Eagles game, as far as they're aware, they need to win the game to have any hope. So if you're going to bet against the Eagles because of motivation, don't, because they have to win this game. Eagles minus 5.5 against the Giants. 49ers Rams. This line has moved in my favor, but I still do like the Rams. I took the Rams plus 4.5, minus 105. It's now 3.5. There are 3.5 still available. Specifically, I'm looking at Caesar Sportsbook has a 3.5 available. If you can get it above a field goal, that'd be the way to go. So this is actually a scenario where I'm betting against a team that has nothing to play for. Now, the Rams have little to play for as well. I think the Rams have locked up a playoff spot. I think if they lose, I think there might be a chance that they drop to the 6 seed, drop to the 7 seed. I don't know that exactly. Maybe I should have looked that up to see if they had anything to play for this week. They're right now the 16 seed at 9-7, but the Packers, who would be the next team closest, if they lose, they'd both be 9-8. So I don't know how the tiebreaker works. Obviously, it depends on who finishes at 9-8. The Rams be in the playoffs, but based on this, they could probably still drop to the 7 seed. So they do kind of need to win this game. 49ers do not. Has not been announced who the 49ers will be resting. I would guess Christian McCaffrey. If your best player is your running back, running back is specifically one position they're getting hit all game. Maybe they don't sit him the whole game, but he's definitely going to get a reduced workload. But that's not why I'm betting against the 49ers. I actually think, now maybe not the current line of 3.5, at 4.5, I might actually consider betting on the Rams even if all starters are playing. This Rams team has turned into a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the second half of the season. Their wins aren't fraudulent. If we look at NFL net in net yards per play over their last 3 games, it's plus 0.8. And let me take a look where they rank season long. They must have climbed up the rankings here. Season long net yards per play, they're all the way up to 8th in the NFL in net yards per play this season, just a smidge below the Lions, which I think is a pretty fair assessment for this Rams team. Don't forget the last team the Ravens struggled with, who now we all look at as the best team in the NFL, was the Rams. The Rams scored 31 points against that Ravens defense. They took them to overtime. I think this Rams team is legitimate. I would probably take the points of the Rams against this 49ers team no matter who's playing. So with the 49ers also likely going to be resting a couple of guys, I will take the points with the Rams. Like I said, I like it as long as you can get over a field goal. If it gets down to a field goal, probably still the Rams. Also, what the Rams can do, which is going to hurt the 49ers, the Rams can run the football. One of the better running teams with Kyron Williams in the backfield, and the 49ers, I've talked about this before when they were playing the Ravens, the weakness of the 49ers is their run defense. So at exactly 3, I'd probably take the Rams. If it dips below 3, I'd probably shift and take the 49ers. But at the current number, I like the LA Rams. Broncos and Raiders, this line is not shifted. It's a meaningless game. Actually, it's not meaningless. It's meaningless for these two teams. But the way the Steelers can get into the playoffs, if they lose to the Ravens, one of the things they need to happen, and I'm guessing it's a strength of opponent schedule or something, is they need the Broncos to win this game. So if the Steelers lose on Saturday, this game actually becomes important, but only important for the Steelers, funny enough. It is the Broncos, it's the Raiders. I'll take the Raiders -2.5 at home. If there's one team that's eliminated that's still going to play with a chip on their shoulder, it's the Raiders. Now, that is circumstantial, or that is, subjective. There's no way that I can measure that. But Antonio Pierce, their head coach, is trying to prove that he should be the head coach of this team moving forward. They got a lot of players on their team that have something to prove. Their defense has been unbelievable. Actually, since week 10, their defense is third in opponent EPA per play. Antonio Pierce, I think, does deserve to be the head coach. The things he's done with this team has been unbelievable. So I will take the Raiders. This Raiders defense is going to crush the Broncos. Why am I just completely blanking on their backup quarterback, the Patriots guy? Jarrett Stidham. It's going to be bad. Even though they beat the Chargers last week 16-9, he looked bad. Russell Wilson's, I understand why they sat him for, contract reasons. But Russell Wilson's clearly the better quarterback on that team. So Broncos on the road, only getting 2.5 points. Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. Nothing to play for. Their kind of locker room has imploded a little bit by all kind of reports. I have no interest in betting the Broncos. I will lay the 2.5 points with the Raiders at home. Bears versus Packers. If you don't like my Falcons underdog money line upset pick of the week and you want to bet a different one, I don't blame you. I would go with the Bears. I got them at +3. I took the 3 points instead. It is still available at +3. I love the Bears in this game. I think they might win outright. The Packers are the Packers and Seahawks, both of them in the exact same situation as last year, except against different teams. Last year, if you remember, these Packers, all they had to do was beat the Lions to get into the playoffs, whereas the Seahawks needed to beat the Rams and then the Packers to lose to the Lions for them to get in the playoffs. And that's what happened. Seahawks beat the Rams earlier in the day, and then the Packers lost to the Lions in what was a meaningless game for the Lions on Sunday Night Football. I think we're in the same situation because if the Packers win, they're in against, if they beat the Bears, they're in. If they lose, but the Seahawks win, the Seahawks are in. I think we might see that exact same situation play out 2 years in a row. Obviously, the Packers' offense has been better than the Bears' offense, but the two defenses for these two teams, especially in the second half of the season, have been on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Since week 10, believe it or not, the Bears have actually been the best defense in the NFL. If you look at EPA per play and opponent success rate since week 10, the Bears are first in the NFL in both of those categories. First in opponent EPA per play, first in opponent success rate. Their defense has been dominant. Packers defense, 25th and 26th in those two stats since week 10. So they're actually both kind of average defenses to start the year. They have both gone complete opposite directions, and now it is the Bears who have an elite defense and the Packers defense that stinks. I think that's enough to at least keep this game close, despite it being a meaningless game for the Bears. I will take the 3 points with the Bears. I got it at -104. +3, -105 still available out there. I'm seeing it at FanDuel right now. Cowboys and Commanders. Cowboys and Commanders. The Cowboys need to win this game to clinch the NFC East. So I will take the Cowboys laying almost 2 full touchdowns, -13.5, -108. This is one of the rare spots this weekend that I'm backing the team that it is a quote-unquote must-win. Obviously, they're still in the playoffs regardless, and they could still actually win the NFC East if they lose and the Eagles lose. But I'll lay the points here against the Commanders. I laid the points on the 49ers against the Commanders last week. It's just the Commanders suck. The Commanders had some spark, at least offensively, early in the year. They have completely collapsed. Their secondary is terrible, 31st in opponent dropback EPA. The Cowboys are too talented at the receiver position for the Commanders to deal with them. I'll lay the 13.5 points for the Cowboys. I have nothing else to say. I will just fade the Commanders the rest of the season, as I've been doing the past couple of weeks. And it's the big game, the game of the week. It is the very fitting game for the season to end on because it is the Bills and the Dolphins. And there is a situation where heading into this game, it could be either the Bills win the game and win the AFC East and finish as the number 2 seed in the conference, or lose the game and completely miss the playoffs. I don't know if there's ever been a game that could have that big of a swing one way or the other, where win, you're the number 2 seed in the conference, or lose, you miss the entire playoffs. That's unbelievable. Now, I will say, if you don't already know, in order for that to happen, the Steelers and the Jaguars would both have to win their games. That is certainly possible. They are both playing teams where the game is meaningless. They are both favored by a field goal or more. So if the Steelers beat the Ravens on Saturday and if the Jaguars beat the Titans on Sunday, then heading into the game, when it kicks off Sunday night, the Bills are either win, get the number 2 seed, lose, eliminated from the playoffs. Dolphins already have secured a playoff seed, so the worst they can be is a wild card team. They still need to win the game to win the AFC East. And obviously, if either or the Steelers or Jaguars lose, then the Bills will have a wild card seed as well. So we will see what the exact situation will be heading into Sunday night. But if you guys remember, I recommended back in early December to bet on the Bills to win the AFC East. I bet on them at plus 310 at that moment. So how I'm treating this game from a sides perspective is I basically have a Bills money line bet ticket right now at plus 310, and the Dolphins are 3-point home underdogs available at plus 140. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try for a middle. So I have the Bills money line ticket at plus 310 effectively, because obviously if they win the game to win the AFC East, I win that AFC East ticket. I'm now going to bet on the Dolphins plus 3 in an attempt at a middle. Then if the Bills win but don't cover, I win both bets. I'm the happiest person on the planet. I'm rich. If the Bills win and cover, then I win a much bigger bet. I win a pretty decent profit with them winning the AFC East. If the Dolphins win, then at the very least I'll have the plus 3 ticket to soften the blow a little bit. Now I could do a true just hedge and just go Dolphins money line and have, either I'd have a plus 310 bet on one side and a plus 140-ish bet on the other side. But I'm going to get greedy and try to middle. So I am betting on the game in terms of a side, Dolphins plus 3. Now, if I were to handicap the game and give you a side bet, I probably would go Dolphins plus 3 as well. I think the Bills are a pretty overvalued team in the betting market right now, just because they're red hot. But my actual best bet for the game, if I were to just bet on this game, as a separate entity outside of the bets I already have placed, I actually like the under. So my pick for this will be under 50. Now, I get it. This is a very lame way to end the road to 272 bets, and to bet on the final game of the NFL regular season with so much on the line is to take an under bet. But if I'm trying to win bets, I got to do it the best way possible, and I think the best bet for this game is the under. These two defenses have been some of the most improved defenses in the second half of the NFL season. Since week 10, they are 4th and 9th in opponent EPA per play, 5th and 10th in opponent success rate. So top 10 defenses in both major metrics there in the second half of the season. And with so much on the line for both teams, I think we just might see a little bit more of a calculated approach. I believe, now I might be lying here, but I believe the Bills have been running the ball a lot more lately. I'm going to go rushing play percentage. Last 3 games, by a wide margin. Bills have run the ball on 62.7% of plays over their last 3 games. Their season average is 45.86. So even including those last 3 games in their season average, still the last 3 games is, almost 18% more. They've been running the ball lately. When you run the ball, obviously the clock keeps moving. The clock goes a little bit faster. And that kind of leads to an under. Bills, of all teams, last 3 games, Bills run the ball 62.7%. That's the best mark in the NFL by almost 8%. Next close to the Steelers, 54.64. So I think they run the ball. I think they play defense. I think both sides play defense. I think this total is like 3 points too high. So I like the under 50 for the final bet of the Road to 272 Bets 2023 edition. Bills Dolphins under 50. All right, I'll recap my picks and then I'll give you my 5 best bets and my teaser of the week. We got Ravens plus 4.5, minus 110 against the Steelers. We got Texans minus 102 against the Colts. I got Vikings plus 6, minus 110 with the line all the way down to 3. I now like the Lions minus 3, but for my official record, I have Vikings plus 6, minus 110. I got Browns plus 5, minus 110 against the Bengals. Falcons plus 160 on the money line against the Saints. Patriots minus 2.5, minus 110 against the Jets. Panthers plus 6, minus 110 against the Buccaneers. Titans plus 4.5, minus 108 against the Jaguars. Chargers minus 1.5, minus 104 against the Chiefs. But if you bet it with the current line of -3, then I actually like the under 36. But for my records, it'll be Chargers minus 1.5, minus 104. I got the over 47.5, minus 110 between the Seahawks and Cardinals. I got the Eagles minus 5.5, minus 110 against the Giants. I got the Rams plus 4.5, minus 105 against the 49ers. I got the Raiders minus 2.5, minus 110 against the Broncos. I got the Bears plus 3, minus 104 against the Packers. I got the Cowboys minus 13.5, minus 108 against the Commanders. And finally, the last bet of the road to 272 bets will be the under 50, minus 110 between the Bills and the Dolphins. My 5 best bets for the week: Falcons plus 3.5, Patriots minus 2.5, Eagles minus 5.5, Bears plus 3, Raiders minus 2.5. So Falcons, Patriots, Eagles, Bears, Raiders, all to cover if you're doing a pick'em contest. If you just want my straight up best bets, I would sub out the Eagles minus 5.5 and instead do the Cardinals Seahawks over 47.5. So if you just want my straight up 5 best bets, it's Falcons, Patriots, Bears, Raiders, Cardinals, Seahawks over. If you're doing a pick'em contest where you got to pick spreads, sub out the Cardinals, Seahawks over 47.5, put in the Eagles minus 5.5. Teaser of the week. We're going to tease. Actually, this doesn't work anymore. I wrote this teaser yesterday on different lines. Because now we'd have to tease. I originally had the Texans plus 7.5 from plus 1 against, or plus 1.5 against the Colts. I had the Bears up to plus 9. We're going to keep the Bears plus 9. But now we are going to, I don't know, this makes it hard. Not a lot of great teaser legs this week. We are going to, can't tease through 0. Got the Browns there. I don't want to make a teaser leg that kind of goes against my straight pick for the game. Let's just take the Rams up from plus 3.5. This is not a great teaser leg because it's already up 3. We are passing the key number of 7. We're getting to plus 9.5. There's not a lot of great teaser legs like this week. So we're going to take the Bears plus 9 versus Packers, Rams plus 9.5 versus 49ers. There you have it. This has been the week 18, but this has been the road to 272 bets. We're here. We've made it. How many bets do I need to win to secure a profit? To make sure that I don't completely blow it up and lose. And imagine if I go like 2-14 and I end up like down units. Oh, so it'd be 4-12. I think I'd have to win 5 bets. Because if I went 5-11, I'd probably be down 6.5 units. But if I went 4-12, that's a difference of 8. It's probably gonna be more than 8 units. Yeah, probably be close to 9 units I would lose. Yeah, so I think the magic number is 5. I think I got to win 5 bets this week to secure a profit. Now, that would still suck to go 5-11 and lose almost all of my profit. But if my goal at the start of the season, which it is, to finish green, the magic number is 5. We got to win 5 bets this week, my friends. It can be 4 if one of the wins is the Falcons money line. I could probably get away with only winning 4. But to be safe, let's say the magic number is 5. We got to go at least 5-11 this week to finish profitable. Best of luck to all of you betting on week 18. Please subscribe to the podcast channel on YouTube, the Bacon Bets Podcast. Rate and review the podcast if you've enjoyed the content throughout the season. Don't worry, we'll be back next week to talk all things playoffs. I'm also going to recap the season, my betting season, as well as I'm going to take a look back at my NFL preview episode where I gave my best futures bet for every team. I haven't looked at it yet, but just thinking about how the ones I bet on certain teams that I remember, I think I did pretty well with my futures bets. I'll have to go back and take a look at that when the season concludes as well. So that'll be on next week's episode. Thank you all so much for listening and for watching. Gamble or bless. Good luck this week. And we'll talk to y'all next week for the wild card round, the best weekend of football of the year.